berjumpa lagi. I'm Raissa Chentami of the Indonesia channel in Jakarta, and this is your weekly look at the dynamic Southeast Asia region. Thousands of protesters defiantly filled the streets of Bangkok over several weeks in October despite a government crackdown. The latest rallies were called on October 18th after Prime Minister Prayuth Chan-o-cha ignored the protesters' deadline to step down. Core demands also include a more democratic constitution and reforms to the monarchy. The protesters say that the former coup leader is holding power unfairly because laws had been changed to favor a pro-military party. Thailand had rolled back a severe emergency decree on October 22nd, but that only raised tensions that saw tens of thousands of people on the streets. Protesters also filled the streets here in Indonesia over a new law they say will harm workers and the environment. The Jobs Creation Law passed on October 5th revises a number of existing laws and regulations that the government says will boost employment and investment. But a national labor strike was called on October 8th with protests held in more than 60 locations throughout the archipelago. Here in Jakarta, protesters assembled in defiance of a city ban on mass gathering during the COVID-19 pandemic. Minor fires were set with police arresting more than 800 protesters. Indonesia and the United States agreed to boost military cooperation after a meeting between the country's top defense leaders. Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto met with his counterpart Mark Esper in Washington on October 16th. They discussed regional security, bilateral defense priorities, and hardware acquisitions. But no official announcement was made on any deals signed during Subianto's 5-day visit. The U.S. did agree to send ventilators and $12.3 million in COVID-19 relief funding to Indonesia. The former general was previously banned from entering the U.S. due to allegations of human rights violations more than 20 years ago. Malaysia's Prime Minister faced calls to resign after the country's king rejected a request to declare a state of emergency to fight the pandemic. Muhyiddin Yassin wanted a proclamation of an economic emergency after a spike in coronavirus cases. But critics accused him of using it as a pretext to suspend parliament and avoid a test of his razor-thin parliamentary majority. Muhyiddin argued that snap elections could jeopardize government spending to contain the pandemic, and a state of emergency would ensure that doesn't happen. Heavy rains from early October caused severe and deadly floods and landslides in several ASEAN countries. In Cambodia, at least 24 people were killed and tens of thousands were forced to leave their homes. Nearly 60,000 structures and 240,000 hectares of farmland were flooded. Nearly 250,000 people in 19 provinces and cities were affected. In Vietnam, emergency crews began evacuating 90,000 residents from flooded areas on October 21st. At least 111 people were killed, with dozens missing. 60 national highways and more than 160,000 meters of roads in 4 provinces were damaged. 25 provinces in Thailand were hit by torrential rain due to tropical storm Nangka on October 18th, causing at least 1 dead.
ไม่ค่อยมีเงินมีทองอะไรอย่างเงี้ยต้องซื้อของใช้ใหม่หมดกระทบมาตั้งแต่โควิด
25,000 households in 25 provinces were affected. And in the Philippines, at least 25,000 villagers were displaced, with most taking shelter in schools and government buildings. More than 1,800 truck drivers, workers and passengers were stranded in ports due to rough seas. Malaysia's palm oil industry is suffering from a serious labor shortage after many foreign workers left because of the coronavirus pandemic. ASEAN Today's Karina Tasha reports.
The multi-billion-dollar palm oil industry in Malaysia has long depended on low-paid foreign workers, 80% from Indonesia. Even before the pandemic hit, the industry was short 36,000 workers, costing billions of dollars in lost production. In a further blow to the industry, the government ordered a freeze on recruiting foreign workers until the end of the year. Now businesses are looking to local labor to try to fill the hole. Many Malaysians have long shunned plantation work, viewing it as too physically demanding and demeaning, but some now have different perceptions.
When the pandemic hit, I lost my job in the airline industry. My suggestion is that Malaysians keep an open mind. They cannot be so choosy about what work they do, especially now. Plantation work is good work.
Other palm oil companies are using prison inmates to try and fill the labor shortage.
A representative for palm oil giant Sime Darby says the prisoners are benefiting from the program, but workers are still in short supply.
They are paid as per any of our other workers. They'll be able to learn new skills, employable skills, and at the end of their sentence, they can then join a productive workforce. To date, we only see about 60 that voluntarily coming into the placement program. And coupled with the locals that we hired, which was only about 300, this is not going to close at all the labor shortage.
To attract more local laborers, employers are trying to make the work not as physically demanding.
We are looking how to simplify the job. Now very seriously looking at mechanization, automation. Actually, we have gone a long way in terms of mechanization, in terms of crop evacuation, herbicide spraying, fertilizer application. But the core, most critical operation, which is bringing down the fruit from the tree, that is still manually reliant.
Malaysia currently accounts for 28% of the world's palm oil production and 33% of global exports. As one of the biggest industry players, finding the answer to this manpower problem is crucial in fulfilling the growing global need for oils and fats. Karina Tasha for ASEAN Today.
More ASEAN Today is coming up shortly. China wants a role in maintaining regional peace and stability. Leaders in the hot seat next. You're watching ASEAN Today. I'm Raissa Chentami in Jakarta. China's foreign minister embarked on a five-nation tour of Southeast Asia from October 11th to the 15th. The visits by Wang Yi were aimed at enhancing key relationship in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. Reactions from regional leaders in our Hot Seat segment.
Apart from bilateral issues, His Excellency and I touched on several regional and international issues, namely the South China Sea, ASEAN, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, and US-China relations. On the South China Sea, we both agreed on the importance of maintaining peace and stability in the region. Disputes should be addressed through peaceful means, including through regional dialogues and discussions amongst the parties concerned, without resorting to threats or the use of force. On ASEAN, we welcome closer coordination and cooperation between China and all ASEAN member states. We also look forward for the celebration of the 30th anniversary of ASEAN-China dialogue relations in 2021. For RCEP and APEC 2020, we look forward for the signing of RCEP and the launching of APEC post-2020 vision in conjunction with APEC Economic Leaders Week at the end of the year. On US-China relations, both sides exchanged views on the latest developments. Malaysia hopes that both parties will resolve to strengthen their mutual trust and continue to converge on dialogue as a way to manage the differences.
我们一致同意维护南海的和平稳定。我们都认为南海不应成为大国博弈之海，不应成为炮舰横行之海。中国和东盟，我们完全有能力、有智慧、也有责任维护好南海的和平与安宁。我们双方应该排除外部因素的干扰，继续落实好 DOC， 同时争取早日达成有效并且有实质意义的 COC。
I would also like to take this opportunity during this visit to personally thank my brother, His Excellency Wang Yi, and China for the generous contribution and kind assistance extended during the COVID-19 pandemic. These include sending a team of health experts to assist Malaysia during the peak of COVID-19 and receiving substantial contribution from the Chinese local governments, private sectors, and friendship associations. These assistance and contributions have greatly assisted Malaysia in the early stage in facing the greatest public health challenge to our generation. This also clearly reflects the true friendship and mutual understanding of at all levels between the two countries. For that, Your Excellency, I thank you. I'm also proud to announce that we have made several important decisions today. First, regarding post-COVID-19 cooperation, we look forward to an early conclusion of the negotiation on a bilateral memorandum of understanding on cooperation in post-COVID-19 era. This MOU provides the broad framework of pragmatic cooperation between the two countries in the post-COVID-19 era. And I hope to sign this MOU personally in my return visit to Beijing when the situation permits.
Wang Yi's visit follows Washington's recent launch of a new U.S. Mekong partnership designed to counter China's rising influence in the lower Mekong nations. More ASEAN Today is coming up shortly. How Singapore's tourism industry is going after the local dollar. That's ahead. This is ASEAN Today, coming to you from Jakarta, home of the ASEAN Secretariat. It's graduation season in Thailand, but the COVID-19 crisis is casting a shadow over the graduates' future. As ASEAN Today's Aisha Nadira reports, more than 500,000 students are faced with a shrinking economy and an emerging political crisis.
Chulalongkorn University is Thailand's oldest and most prestigious university. At its graduation ceremony, many fresh graduates are hopeful but worried about what the future holds for them. Graduating from a top university doesn't automatically mean getting a quick start in the job market like it used to.
เรารู้สึกว่าโอกาสเรามันน้อยลงหรือเปล่าเพราะว่าคนต้องการงานมันก็เยอะขนาดนั้นอะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะคือเราก็ไม่ค่อยกล้าขอเงินจากที่บ้านแล้วงานมันก็หายากอะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะมันก็เลยทำให้เรายิ่งกดดันตัวเองว่า
Chalisa's predicament highlights one of Thailand's biggest economic problems. Young people who have invested in higher education are finding it increasingly hard to find work, potentially affecting their future prospects and those of future generations. Their numbers, in the hundreds of thousands, are adding to the pool of millions of unemployed in a country with a minimal welfare system.
อีก6 เดือนเนี่ยรุ่นใหม่จะออกมาอีกแล้วอีก 500,000 คนเนื่องจากการศึกษาใหม่เนี่ยจะออกมาอีกแล้วเขาเป็นห่วงว่าเด็กรุ่นนี้เนี่ยอาจจะตกงานถาวรเป็นหลายแสนคนครึ่งหนึ่งจะตกงานถาวรเมืองไทยไม่เคยเผชิญปัญหาการว่างงานระดับสูงมาเป็นเวลา20 ปีดังนั้นเราไม่มีตัวอย่าง
At this government-organized job expo set up for job seekers, the crowds are telling of these tough times. In an effort to offset the problem, the government has approved employment subsidy programs, aid measures to help new graduates, and a training program to help graduates learn new skills while providing an allowance.
รัฐบาลเองเนี่ยเราก็ได้พยายามที่จะสร้างงานเพื่อที่จะให้เด็กที่จบใหม่รวมถึงประชาชนที่ยังไม่มีงานทำเนี่ยได้มีงานทำจริงๆแล้วเนี่ยไม่ใช่เฉพาะกระทรวงอุดมศึกษานะครับรัฐบาลเราสร้างงานหลายแสนอัตราเลยครับในปีนี้เพื่อที่จะรองรับ
For the class of 2020, COVID-19's lasting impact may be determined by what happens next. If they are left to fend for themselves, mass youth unemployment could lead to disillusionment, widespread despair, and heightened political instability. Already, anger is boiling over as youth protests have been gaining momentum nationwide. Graduates say they do not want to become a lost generation. Aisha Nadira for ASEAN Today.
Here are several events on the ASEAN calendar. Runners will line up for the Hari Sukan Negara 2020 virtual run from November 10th to the 30th in Malaysia. Hindu families in Southeast Asia and around the world will celebrate Diwali on November 14th. And the Surin Elephant Roundup will be held on November 21st and the 22nd in Surin, Thailand. Singapore has launched a campaign to boost domestic tourism as international travel remains restricted amid the COVID-19 pandemic. ASEAN Today's Fawzil Azim has the details.
Singapore has launched a $32 million campaign called Singapore Discovers to encourage locals to enjoy hotels, dining, and attractions. Industry experts say the campaign can offer some degree of help, but in the long run, it will be essential for the country to open borders to international tourists again.
So this is a minimal that the government is trying to help to encourage businesses to sustain themselves at least at the break-even numbers so that they could move on, and hopefully in the foreseeable future, the tourists will come back to Singapore and then the business can take off from there.
So far, more than 100 businesses have come on board to offer unique experiences through tours, promotions at attractions, food and beverage outlets, and value-for-money staycation or daycation packages. Singapore's holiday island Sentosa, for example, is home to some of the most popular attractions, such as the SEA Aquarium and the Universal Studios. It's offering free entry until the end of the year.
We are actually seeing a 65% year-on-year increase in local visitorship for the period between July and August. So ever since the Singapore circuit breaker was lifted, I think many of the locals have come to see Sentosa as really the vacation place.
To further entice locals to spend on domestic tourism, the government will give Singapore Discover vouchers worth 100 Singapore dollars each to all adult citizens for use from December 2020 through June 2021. The Ascot Group believes the vouchers will encourage Singaporeans to go on more staycations.
We've seen a lot of spike in bookings. We know that most people will use it in the hotels, but we want to differentiate ourselves and not just be a hotel room. That's why we've tied up with local attractions. We've tied up with local tours. So if you do the perfect staycation stay at Live Funan, it also comes with a tour from a local operator. You can visit heritage sites in the area.
Singaporeans spent billions of US dollars on overseas travel in 2018. The government hopes that even a small slice of that pie can sustain the industry long enough for business to return as usual. Fauzul Azim for ASEAN Today.
We like hearing from you throughout the ASEAN region and the world. Rizal Darmawan posted this on our YouTube channel. Good, we need news like CNA Singapore, but for all ASEAN nations. Well, that's our goal, Rizal. All of our episodes are posted on YouTube, so check us out there if you can't find us on your local TV channel. Then let us know what you're thinking about or what you want to see on the program. Email us at ASEANTodayTV@gmail.com, post something on our Facebook page, or tweet us at ASEANTodayTV. Tracking the trail of the coronavirus in Singapore is now a bit easier. It's one of the first countries in the world to hand out free pocket-sized devices for contact tracing. It uses a Bluetooth signal to log whom the device came in contact with and the duration of the encounter. It's available to all residents in Singapore, storing data for 25 days. And that's ASEAN Today for this week. I'm Raissa Chentami of the Indonesia channel in Jakarta. Terima kasih. Please join us again next time.